Hi JCAC family, welcome back to our channel. In today's video, I'm going to be starting a series on building confidence in children. The number one request I get in the beginning of counseling, regardless of the presenting issue, is can you help foster more confidence in my child? Whether it's a child dealing with depression, going through a divorce, or just struggling with school. In this series, I'm going to be going over 3 different important skills that you can be doing at home to help foster this in your child. So let's dive in. So we're going to start with talking about priorities, your priorities in parenting. So to get started with that, think about when you picture your child as a 25 or 35-year-old. What do you hope to see? What do you visualize for their success? Do you see them having their own family, a successful career, living on their own? What are their values? What matters to them? How have they grown up? Take a moment and pause the video and reflect on that. Write a few things you hope to see for your children. Now take a look at some of the words, some of the key things you wrote down. Is this a specific personality trait that you've hoped for in your child? Or is this how they can grow and become who they are? So I'll give you an example. A specific personality trait is I want them to be outgoing and have lots of friends and have a great career and have this fun life. What if your child's an introvert? That might not be as possible for them. More of a how they grow into themselves. I want them to be content. I want them to be happy. I want them to follow their passion. I want them to have a career they love or fall in love with the perfect person or have great kids that they get to raise. This is an example of them kind of following their journey and developing who they are. So be mindful of that, because what can happen here and what can really hurt your child's confidence is when we're trying to raise a child to become something we see them as, rather than helping them develop who they are. And they get conflicting messages. So an introverted child, if a parent's really encouraging them to go out, make lots of friends, be social, this is what happiness is. And they feel this, what's wrong with me? Why can't I do that? I'll never be happy because I can never be social. And so we've linked 2 things together. We've subconsciously linked these 2 messages together, creating a lot of internal conflict within the child. Or vice versa, if a child's super outgoing and parents are wanting them, hey, stay in, let's study. Hey, let's stay in and do parent game night. And they're kind of bringing everybody in for family time, but restricting their ability to go out and be social, then it's really hard for them to find joy in their natural means of finding joy. And so I think a little bit of this, no matter how old your child is really paying attention to and knowing who is my child and how do I bring out the best in who they are. So if you want to take another moment and rewrite some of those things down, reword them, because you probably had really great intentions. But if you need to reword or rethink those priorities so it helps them grow into the best version of themselves. And then add some core values. Values are super important. Values you hope your child to hold and have. The next part of priorities I want to talk about, and this is actually I think the biggest key, is your relationship with them. Your relationship with your children is so, so valuable. The kind of messages I hope your kids are getting from you is, you are so precious to me. You are so valuable to me. And I love you unconditionally. You can't screw up me loving you. You can't mess up enough for me to stop loving you. Now, a lot of parents get this confused with not disciplining your children, not giving them consequences or boundaries, which is quite the opposite. Unconditional love requires boundaries. It requires expectations and clarity and healthy communication. But the communication is, here are the boundaries, here's right and wrong, here's what we expect from you. You cross that line, here are the consequences, and I love you. And I value you, and you're important to me. There's a big difference between shame and guilt. And shaming statements sound something like, what's wrong with you? How could you do that? And a guilt statement is something like, that wasn't a really good choice. What can we do different next time? And here's the consequence because you made that choice. Shame shuts you down. turns you off and keeps you from growing and learning. Guilt makes you think through a decision and think through how you can change it next time. We're going to go through this a lot more in part 2 when we talk about discipline and what are we communicating to our children in our discipline? What are we teaching them and how are they growing? Because a child who is growing in confidence is a child who can trust themselves, a child who can stand on their own 2 feet and know my mom and dad have my back. Secure base is so, so important. And that secure base starts with this unconditional love of, I will love you through mistakes. I will love you through the good times. What we need to create for our children is a foundation. Life's messy. You're going to be dealing with frustrating moments, busy moments, overwhelming moments, your children too. And that foundation of love, you can all stand on it together and deal with the mess of life together as a connected team. You also need to think about the relationships and what you're modeling them, the kind of relationships you have around you. Your relationship with your spouse is a really key one of how are you modeling communication, conflict, navigating compromise, and just being a partner, being a team. A lot of parents bring in their kiddos because they're fighting, siblings are having a lot of disagreements. My first question usually is, how's your relationship? And what are you modeling in the car when you're talking together about which restaurant you're going to? That's really, really important. And then also, who are you choosing to hang around? Who are your friends? What do you value in those friendships? How do you talk about your friends? If you wonder why your child is becoming a gossip at school, look at how you're handling your own friendships and what are you showing them as what a healthy relationship looks like. Or how do you handle conflict in a relationship between a friend, between a peer? Do you talk bad about each other or do you go and talk to each other and try to create resolution? These are the foundational pieces to how your child views yourself and other as loving and nurturing and a possibility for a good relationship, a clear view of what healthy and non-healthy looks like so that they can make a judgment call of who's a good friend. Good friends foster self-esteem. They foster self-confidence. Knowing I am a good person. A lot of shaming statements make a child question that. So really think through what are your family priorities and how are you relating to your children. Sometimes this is really hard for parents, and that's okay because you may not have had unconditional love growing up. You may not really know what that looks like or feels like, or you may not have a lot of examples now. And so I think the first step here is making sure you have the support you need. You have a small group, you have a group of friends, you have some friends at work. Find some forms of support, and healthy friendship support when you're sharing something tough is I'm leaning in, I'm asking you open-ended questions, I'm not giving you advice, I'm not telling you what to do. A healthy friend celebrates your victories with you and it has your back when you fall. And you have the same for them. There's not guilt, there's not competition, there's not comparison. All of those things are missing to have a really healthy relationship. So find some support for you. Just like riding a plane, you got to put on your gas mask. You can't give what you don't have. And so fill your life up with some unconditional positive regard, some support so that you can give it to your children. Number one place to hopefully find this is in your spouse. And then modeling that for your children. That is the foundation of no matter what happens out in this crazy world, I've got home to come back to. That's a great foundation to build self-confidence. So I hope I've given you some things to think about and reflect with. If you want to show this to your spouse and talk about this together of how can we do this together? How can we be a team for this? I think it might be a great way to start a healthy conversation of some things you guys can put into place to start modeling this for your children and to start giving your children this unconditional positive regard. We're going to be doing 2 more parts. One is going to be about discipline and how we communicate and redirect and set those boundaries. And then the other part is about building character and building a sense of I know why we do good and we do what's right. I look forward to seeing you in our next 2 videos. If you want to make sure you see those videos as they come out, hit the subscribe button and the notification bell. To go above and beyond, leave a message in the comments. What's something important to you? What's a value for your family? Or what's a way you make sure your children know that they are loved? Because it might inspire another parent who may be struggling with that question. Thank you guys for being a part of the JCAC community, and I look forward to seeing you in our next video.